Hey there and welcome to NoClip2's first ever big preview where we look at the design and development of an upcoming game that we think is doing something interesting. Today we're going to be spending some time getting to know Mewgenics, a turn-based strategy cat breeding roguelike coming in February 2026 from the minds of Edmund McMillen and Tyler Glaiel, a game that I think is likely to be an early Game of the Year contender. While most YouTube videos hide the critical information at the very end, here at NoClip2 we respect your viewership. We're first going to introduce you to the game and let you know what about it is so interesting, then we're going to dive deeper and deeper into its design and development. And for the sickos who want to know absolutely everything, our final segment is a real banger, easily a topic you've never seen covered in video games before. So you know Edmund McMillen, right? You've seen Indie Game the movie. Edmund is indie game royalty, developing his early game dev skills in the Flash community alongside many other devs, and having been half of Team Meat, the duo behind Super Meat Boy, to say nothing about his incredible success with the Binding of Isaac franchise. We've interviewed him on NoClip twice in the past, including our documentary on Gish. Tyler is a veteran of the Newgrounds wars himself, and has programmed and designed dozens of games, including a few design collaborations with Edmund over the years. For the past 6 years, the duo have been working on Mewgenics, a game that was first teased over a decade ago while Edmund was still working with Tommy Reffinez at Team Meat. Since then, it has exploded into a vast systemic strategy game, all surrounded by a cat-breeding rapper game with Edmund's trademark dark creepiness. And I should know, I've had access to the latest builds of Mewgenics for months now, and have played around 30 hours of the game over the summer. And recently I drove south through the Bay Area to Santa Cruz to interview both Edmund and Tyler about the game's design. But enough chit chat, let's hit the road to a town famous for skateboards, boardwalks, vampires, and college students high out of their minds.
I'm Edmund McMillen and we're talking about Mewgenics. I don't have any boogers in my beard, right?
Don't think so.
Mewgenics is a randomly generated RPG turn-based strategy game where there's cats. It's a cat breed. Mewgenics is a cat breeding sim where you use the cats to go on these randomly generated adventures and customize your cats in a billion different ways. It's like the Binding of Isaac. That's the best way to. It's basically the Binding of Isaac, except turn-based and more in depth, and cats. You know, you've got this hub. It's a house. The themes of hoarding, the themes of cat breeding, the themes of genetics, and this world, which would eventually be called Boone County, which has a bunch of very odd people living in it that are all very focused on themselves.
We have so and so many classes, but we're only going to start you with 4 of them. And you have 4 cats that go out on an adventure, so you make 1 cat in your party, 1 of each class. Hunter, Fighter, Tank, and Mage are the first 4 that you start with. You go out on an adventure, you get your resources, you bring them back to your house, you breed a new generation to go on the next adventure.
Did you have to make this game just because the name was so good?
The name is good.
The name is good.
The name is good. I think Tommy came up with that name.
Thanks, Tommy.
Yeah, thanks. I think as a joke, as like, oh, this is like an edgy almost joke that you couldn't do. You couldn't call it Mewgenics. Maybe Danielle made it. I don't actually know. I gotta ask.
But it wasn't you.
Wasn't me. I didn't come up with it. I'm not that clever. I'm not a Nazi.
It's gonna be a great out of context clip. At its core, Mewgenics is a grid-based, turn-based strategy game where you control a team of 4 cats. Levels are tied together across a tabletop map, and the goal of each run is to collect coins and food and bring them back to your home. Each cat in your home has different attributes and traits, so picking the right cats for the run is essential. You then augment their stats and abilities by assigning a class-specific collar, and as you make your way through the run, cats level up and unlock new abilities and improve their stats. You can also acquire items during each run that can help out, stuff like throwable weapons, armor, and food you can eat to gain health. But like many roguelikes, this is just the tip of the iceberg, and Mewgenics is perhaps the deepest roguelike iceberg I've ever come across, certainly on the level of the Binding of Isaac in terms of simply how much game there is in here. The game has over 900 items, bunches of biomes, dozens of enemy types, and plenty of shocking reveals over the course of its campaign. We're not going to spoil any of that in this video, and all of our gameplay is from the game's first chapter, but it's important to realize just how deep the rabbit hole goes here. Oh, I forgot to talk about the cat breeding. So the eugenics in Mewgenics come from your ability to breed your cats. It's easy to have your crew of cats die during a run, but if you manage to bring them back, you now have these leveled up cats that are ripe for breeding, especially as they can't go out on another run. Cats get pretty fucked up fighting, so once they come back from a run, they've retired. You can spend your money on furniture and items that increase the likelihood that your cats will procreate, and every night you roll the dice and see if 2 of your best trained cats will get together and make a kitten with improved stats that you can take on later runs. Genetics are at the core of Mewgenics, but what is it about them that Ed finds so interesting?
Initially, all the genetic stuff came from ordering these cats, these freak cats. Danielle would be like, I want this Sphinx cat. And it's like, okay, cool. That's weird. It has skin problems. You're gonna have to pull like the cuticle back and like clean around the claws, and because they get a buildup of oil, and you have to clean out their ears constantly because the oil goes crazy, and they don't live as long, and they have heart problems and all that other good stuff. But they're very warm. They're way more like affectionate because they don't have fur. So they want to be on your lap. During the development, I think, of the original prototype, she had ordered a cat called a Bambino. You ever heard of that? Mm-mm. So Bambinos have half legs. So they're like dachshunds, like a dachshund. Like, so their bones and their legs are really little. And someone was breeding Sphinx Bambino cats. And we paid a down payment or whatever, and then they were about to ship it out, and then they were like, sorry, it died.
I wonder why.
Its heart didn't work. I mean, it's terrible, right? It's terrible. You know, Danielle cried. But it's so interesting. The whole thing is so morally weird.
Right.
But no one talks about it like that. And that's where it kind of like started. It was just like, this would be an interesting thing to talk about because it seems funny to me that this isn't a problematic thing.
You know, I play board games at Ed's house regularly, and we'd been playing one while we were working on the End Is Nigh and like shortly after, called Kingdom Death Monster. That was like a board game where you have like a settlement with like a civilization, and you have humans that you like, characters that you can build and set their stats, and they can breed and make babies, and then you send them out to like hunt monsters, and most of them die. But there's like this cycle of these characters like getting fucked up. When you send them out, like they'll get their hands bit off by creatures and stuff, and then they'll come back, and then you can either use the same character again or, you know, breed them and hope that the babies don't just die immediately.
And then over the years, bringing it back up again, it's like at that point I'd already had 2 kids. When you are a parent, you start to realize that you have cursed your children with all the things that are wrong with you. You also realize that the things that you assumed were nurture related growing up didn't actually have that much of an effect, as opposed to the nature aspect, where you start looking around and you see your dad twitching, and you're like, fuck. And you look over, you see your daughter twitching, and then you see yourself twitching in the mirror, and you're like, ah! But I remember really early in development talking to Tyler and saying, I want these things to have disorders, and I want some of these disorders to be things that the cats are born with. But it's very important design-wise that there's a negative, but then there's a silver lining. There's something there that makes it work in another way. Because growing up with all the problems that I have, it's like, a lot of those things really worked for me. Like a lot of my obsessive thinking translated to obsessive design thinking. A lot of my hyperactive became hyperactive creatively. And trying to find the pros within each disorder was really cool design-wise. And there's some really, really fun ones too. We just added ADHD, which is, it raises your intelligence and your speed, but you've got 5 seconds to make an action, or it just does something that it just defaults to something else. So you get distracted and do your thing. But if you play to that though, it's really good. It's just a free bonus. Like it's great. And then stuff like autism gives a cat, it lowers the charisma, raises the intelligence, and then it makes all the things that the cat is naturally born with that they're good at. So they're really good at these one or two specific things, but everything else is harder. That design space is really, really interesting. There was some worry, not by me, but by others, that like maybe this could come out wrong. Like people would think that I'm mocking whatever. So I tested the waters and I posted some of these designs and it became the most viral thing for the game. People really like it. And it feels like representation too, which is really neat. Because it wasn't necessarily intended as much, it just became something that was akin to, I have these disorders. I pass these disorders to my kids. This is going to make their lives in this world, in this generalized society, harder. But there are things that they will be better at. The cons may outweigh the pros, but the thing is you can focus on the cons, even if they're minimal, and you can get really good at those things. A lot of the Mewgenics design feels like that, where it's like, yeah, you may have this downside, but there's a little upside here that you can lean into pretty hard, and the game allows you to do it. Tyler will probably talk about this because he's usually the one that like butts in and says like, games can be problematic. Discuss problematic things. His go-to, which is I didn't even think about, he's like, The Binding of Isaac is a game about like child abuse. You don't need to constantly just write about things that are safe and that, you know, there's more going on here. I promise. I promise. It may take you 200 hours, but it'll all make sense eventually.
Yeah, do you think this game's going to be a hit with the eugenics crowd?
No. I can't say why, but I think those people will be upset. And strangely enough, the people who are against eugenics also upset.
Any real-time strategy game has a certain amount of systemic design built into it. Each agent on the battlefield has things it can do that can impact their enemies and comrades. But over the course of Mewgenics' development, the game has turned into a rich and deep matrix of interacting systems that challenge the player to think outside the box. The guys will explain this better than I can in a second, but a large reason why this is the case is due to two things. One, Edmund and Tyler's love of Magic the Gathering, which has had an organic creative influence on the game's design. And two, the approach that Tyler had to designing the underlying systems that control the game's logic. While Ed has designed and animated the game's characters and interface in Flash using the barely still supported Adobe Animate, Tyler has been programming the game in C++ to be better able to adapt to new ideas each of them might have.
Pretty much everything in the game is like modular. Like there's one like character class which is like used to be a cat, it's used to be a boss, it's used to be like a rock in the field. And that one character class has like a million different things that you can like configure on it. You can be like, attach these passive effects to it, attach these elements to it. It has these 20 spells, it has this brain with these patterns in it and stuff like that. The like elemental interaction system is also just, there's a lot of abilities that will have elements on them like ice or fire. Like rather than have like a fire ability say, also turn grass into fire, it just says, I'm fire. And then the grass tile says, if I'm hit by fire, turn into fire.
Once we had the rule set in place, it like was kind of like, whoa, fuck, this is like Magic the Gathering. Like this is like Magic. Like we could take this, expand it a little bit at a time, and there's so much room here for so many wild things and so many interesting ways to play. If we could just keep adding more to it, it would be infinite. Like every time you play the game, you would absolutely never have the same run.
Meow, meow, meow.
So you got 4 cats. One cat, you class them, and that class has access to 75 abilities that you draft over the course of the game. Those abilities have interplay with the unit, but also with the other units. So when you've got like 10 plus classes, 1,200 abilities, and 800 plus items, every single time you play is totally different. For us, it was just about making sure the foundational rule set made sense to the point where you could be like, this says when I use this, all my cats sync up and spin in a circle hitting every adjacent unit. But I've got this necromancer that summoned a bunch of zombies, but the zombies happen to be cats. Does this work? That's a question that I asked myself. I'm fighting a boss. The boss is surrounded by zombie cats. I see synchro spin, I read that it says cats, I click the button and all of the zombies start spinning in circles and just ripping apart this boss. And it's just every single run that I do, I'm discovering stuff in the game that I didn't realize existed, but makes sense that it does. So it was that initial foundation that we built to make sure that all of this stuff is logical. Like once you understand how the game plays, you should be able to see the combos. You should be able to see ways to go infinite, you know, if that's the way you want to play. And we found out through testing early on too that there are, just like in Magic, there are different people, personality types that like to play very differently. One of which my nephew Eli, his latest claim to fame is getting cancer, which is a disorder that constantly kills the cat but also mutates the cat, and just farming, like constantly spreading cancer to his other cats, going on adventures, surviving, because you need to survive in order to come back so you can continue the breeding of these cats. So these cats become just like insanely mutated. Like he sends me these pictures that's just like, these aren't cats. These are just monsters, but their stats are off the fucking charts. Like they're just bonkers.
And the other hard part about this is that the game needs to be really deep and interesting for that stuff to matter. You know, it can't just be like, oh, click attack and win, like over and over again, because then nothing matters, and then it doesn't matter if what you're breeding, if everything works. You have to have like this sort of deep, infinite possibility space within the actual like combat system of the game for the breeding to matter. And it's important that it does, because that's also a very core part of the game.
So like the fighter, the archetype of the fighter is I'm dumb. I'm a big dumb punch guy, right? So high strength, low intelligence, but he's got this archetype where the dumber he is, the stronger he gets. And then you can find a way to remove your brain. So, and there comes with a bonus, right? So you've got no intelligence. The brain's not there. The brain's gone. No intelligence, and you're on autopilot. It's like auto-controlling you and stuff like that. I think it might like double your attack and give you a bunch of other elevated things. But you can find ways to break the archetypes with disorders, with items, with multi-classing, and that's all done through breeding. So if you've got a cat that has no brain, that's a disorder. That is a dominant disorder too. Disorders are dominant. So you could breed that and just have a whole horde of brainless cats that you could find ways to use. But yeah. And also, if you have no brain, I gotta show you it. It makes the text just go.
That like middle part where we make like 1,000 modular pieces really does help like mix and match, and like makes it easy to like, this boss isn't working, he needs something else. Oh, let's just put this thing on it and see how it feels. Like, oh, that works cool, or oh, that one doesn't quite work, and swap it around and like test things and iterate very fast on concepts and stuff. I really like how like infinite the game is. Like there's just a common thing. We have people with like 700 hours played on Steam where still they're not bored of it. Every adventure just, you don't know what's gonna happen when you go out on an adventure. You'd be like, this cat has this crazy ability that it was bred on its bloodline for like 5 generations, and I finally have one that does not have like this debilitating like disease attached to it as well. I'm gonna take it on an adventure and see what I can do with it. And I don't know what's gonna happen. And that's like the real magic of the game, is that even if you know everything that's in the game, which I do because I made almost everything that was in the game, at least programmed it, I still don't know what's gonna happen when I take those cats out on an adventure. And that's like what's really special about the game.
Hey, are you enjoying this preview? Did you know that NoClip 2 is a team of 4 people with fewer than 400 patrons and an operating budget of about $2,500 a month? That's about half of what we need to keep doing this type of games coverage we think is important and the future of our industry. So if you like what we've done here, please head over to patreon.com/noclip2 and help us make more features like this. Doing so will unlock a bunch of bonuses too, including a special episode of Edmund McMillen Home Office Cribs, where he shows off his collection of what I can only describe as eccentric paraphernalia. The Mewgenics we're talking about today is a very different game to the one that was shown by Team Meat as far back as PAX 2012, and for many fans of Super Meat Boy, the splitting of Team Meat was a tragedy, especially as so many people had connected with Tommy and Edmund's relationship as it was portrayed in Indie Game the Movie. Mewgenics was not the reason that Tommy and Edmund decided to part ways, but it certainly had its part to play.
Right after Super Meat Boy, Tommy went on vacation, and Daniel's like, well, are we gonna go on vacation? I'm agoraphobic, so it's like, travel in general is a nightmare, and I don't want to do it, and that's really stressful. And I wanted to get real and reward myself for a job well done, so I wanted to have that too. And I just try to be real with myself and be like, what do I want to make? Like, I want to make something. That's what would relax me. Like, I want to make something that's not stressful, that I'm not going to think about making money off of, just something fun. And me and Tommy talked about doing a roguelike, you know, especially after playing something like Spelunky. And the roguelike genre was really kind of bubbling up. Excuse me. No pun intended. And it was spicy, and it was not the burp. It was the roguelike genre was really cool, and it like seemed untapped to be applied to all these different existing genres of video games. And since the proof was there, Spelunky worked really well. I was like, I want to make a roguelike. And me and Tommy was like, okay, we'll do something. And while he was gone, I wanted to do a prototype of another basic roguelike to get my feet in the water for this big roguelike that me and Tommy were gonna do. And so I got with Florian and was like, hey, you wanna make this randomly generated game that just kind of reuses the Legend of Zelda dungeon structure? And he's like, yes. And then 3 months later, The Binding of Isaac was done. And Tommy was back, and I had this experience working on this roguelike, and I was like, okay, let's make this game. I want to make this game about cats. And the original prototype was called 1,000 Cats. And the general idea was you have got this house that you can upgrade and hoard items to fill your house, hoard cats that breed and, you know, share DNA. Like it would have this in-depth breeding sim that happened, and you take these cats and you use them as avatars in these other games. And one of the main games was like a Pokemon fighting game, and some of the other ones were like a cat race and a beauty pageant. I came up with all these characters in the world. The world was really fun. It was like this black and white. I was trying to do like an old 30s Betty Boopy type world, and then Cuphead came out like 2 years later, and I was like, well, that's fucking, I can't do that. I gotta pull back a bit. But that was the prototype, and I really liked it. I thought it had so much potential. It was so fun, it was so weird, but I was the only person that really felt that way. I got a lot of like, I could see this doing well, but I could also see this bombing. And I remember being like, well, who cares? Like, what are we gonna, like, I wanna take risks, and I wanna do something crazy and weird, and I don't really care. Like, I've stabilized at this point. Like, Meat Boy did well. I have a house. Now it's time to fuck around, you know? Have some fun.
How's the game going over? This is the first public showing of it. How has that felt?
It's going all right. It's going pretty good.
Yeah?
People seem to like it.
Yeah, I like it quite a bit.
I think it was just too risky for Tommy, and he did not want to work on it. So I remember finding out through somebody else that the game was canceled. Yeah, I think somebody from Steam messaged me and said, sorry about the cancellation of Mewgenics, but the Meat Boy idea seems cool. And I was like, what? What is going on? Because I thought we were just putting it on pause. That's the wording that I remember. We're pausing things for a bit to focus on something that would be guaranteed to succeed, which was Super Meat Boy Forever. And that was kind of like, I think it was the carrot for me to like, if I can just keep doing this, I can get rewarded with something that, you know, would be fulfilling creatively for me. I wanted to find some way to redesign it for it to be more exciting for Tommy to work on. And I remember pitching a few different things over the years to try to get him back into it, but it just wasn't working. And at that point, I think we had just completely parted ways, you know, creatively and in every way. And when I left Team Meat, I took the IP with me. That was one of the things. It's like, well, and once I cleared my plate with every other dumb fucking thing I decided to commit to for those COVID years. It's like, well, let's jump into what a full-fledged Mewgenics would be with somebody like Tyler.
We finished The End Is Nigh and launched it in 2017. And then after that, we were like poking around with like prototypes and ideas for Mewgenics, but we didn't land on what it was until January of 2020. And then a certain like world event sort of like immediately hit like 2 months later and just kind of like destroyed any sense of like a schedule and like time.
We're very similar in many different ways, but he's got a much stronger number crunchy type programmer brain. He really lets me run wild creatively. So we went through a few designs. Some of them were pretty weird. We had one that was like a Pikmin-like. So if you could imagine, you would choose an alpha, and then you'd have a bunch of little cats, and then you'd go on Pikmin adventures, and they would go auto attack and stuff like that.
Later on, we tried a prototype where it was like Diablo-esque real-time strategy.
Brawler, like a Castle Crashers brawler. That had a lot of potential. That would have been we'd have been way done if we did that.
And when we came back to it in 2020, we just decided to let's just do a tactical strategy game, which is also a very tough genre to do. It's not taking 6 years because it's difficult. I had like the framework for the tactical strategy thing functional like basically within like 2 weeks of working on the prototype. If it wasn't like turning out as good as it was when we started working on it, we would have just cut the scope at like a third of what it is and have been done with it like 3 years ago. It's just sort of the fact that we just keep adding stuff to it and it keeps getting better and there's no like diminishing returns there. Most other games, you hit a point where you're like, more levels, it's just kind of more levels, or more items, it's just kind of more items. Like it's not like adding much to the game. And that was just not the case for Mewgenics. Like we'd add a new like 10 items and be like, oh shit, these changed the whole thing and it's so much more interesting now. We'd add like a new like 10 abilities per character or per character class. It's still like that. We still keep adding stuff and it keeps getting better. We don't know where the end is. We know what we're releasing now, but we don't know like how much more can we put in before we hit like diminishing returns on the content.
If there's one thing I'd like you to take away from this preview, it's that Mewgenics is a big game. We've not shown anything past the first chapter in this gameplay, and it's already shown 5 biomes, half a dozen classes, hundreds of objects, enemies, and map layouts, and a handful of bosses. Between now and the game's launch in February 2026, the team are working on localizing the game into multiple languages, figuring out controller support that will work with the game's current mouse and keyboard-friendly interface, and generally tweaking what has become, for both of them, their biggest game ever.
We didn't realize that we went overboard until we started playtesting early this year. And then we were like, wow, we could have like just done 2 chapters and that would have been fine. Like people would not have complained about it. The fact that we did a 3rd chapter, which was still being worked on at the time, we're like, oh, we could have released summer easily. I kind of committed to a story, and this is one of the first games where I'm like kind of writing a story.
Right.
And I really like the story. In order to have the payoff that the game does, that 3rd chapter needs to be there because it's too cool and unexpected.
If you're following us on like Twitter and whatnot, you kind of get the idea that the game's going to be huge because we say it all the time. But a lot of people aren't. A lot of people are going to go into the game somewhat blind, expect it to be the scope of like your average indie roguelike mega hit like Hades or like Slay the Spire or whatever. And you're going to get into the game, you're going to play it until you beat your first like full like 3 chapter run, and you're gonna be like, oh yeah, that's pretty good. And that is like 1/6 of what Mewgenics is your first 3 chapter run. It just keeps going and going and going, and it's like the best way that I can describe it is that we're kind of like launching a roguelike that's already had 2 DLCs made for it. Except for the fact that since they're all like together from the start, the progression can make sense.
I think that it may overwhelm people, the idea of the game. The appeal of the game may overwhelm people. And I really pull back, and that's why it's hard. It's really hard to like talk about the game. Because the reason why the game is fun is because of how stupidly complicated it is. But you don't want to tell people that you have a game that only shines when it's stupidly complicated. Because then they're going to think, I'm not smart enough to do this, or this is going to be overwhelming. And it's like, no, my job is to teach you and spoon feed you things to lead you into the depths. And you don't even realize that you're playing a stupidly complicated game. But the reward is big. Like if you can keep moving towards it, it's so rewarding. It's so deep. There's a certain point in the game. It used to be 10 hours in, and now it's 6. So we've shaved it back a little bit. But there was a point in the game now at about the 5.5, 6 hour mark, where the game kind of shows you. It gives you a glimpse of what it is. It usually requires 3 to 4 runs in order for you to actually, even if I tell you this game's infinite, this game goes on forever, every run is different, you're not going to fully grasp that until you experience it yourself at least 3 or 4 times. And maybe that's a tall ask, but I think that we can get you there. And I think that once you get there, you'll really enjoy it, because it's not just the 6 hour mark. It does it again at the 10 hour, 12 hour, and the 15 hour. And it keeps doing this. It keeps giving you more and opening up more to stuff that you're not even aware of. Like at the 50, 60, 80 hour mark, the game just totally unfolds in similar ways that Isaac does, where like the more you play, the deeper it gets. It really goes there. Like we're going there.
Mewgenics just taking 6 years long to dev and being massive and like being fun to play forever and not like infinitely replayable, and people's reactions to playing it. And I'm very proud of where this game is right now.
I really believe that this is my best game.
Right.
And I know that people are going to be like, well, it's not going to sell as well as Isaac, and that's true, but that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I think it is the game that I'm most proud of now. And I've got 5 months of development and release and DLC, you know what I mean? Like, it will get better. I'm just so proud of what we did. Like, I couldn't be prouder. It is so fun to work on. Mewgenics is coming out February 10th. And you should wish list it. You should wish list Mewgenics on Steam. Or not, whatever. I mean, when it comes out, I hope you know about it and you play it.
If they're watching this, they should at least know about it.
You should know about it now enough to wish list it. I mean, wish list it. It helps us. That's what they say, right? Like and subscribe. Do you tell them that?
Sure.
You say that?
Could you tell them to like and subscribe to NoClip too?
Bash that like button, yo. Wait, I got a better one. Yeah, so you should like and subscribe to NoClip, because if you don't, you're basically Hitler.
Perfect. Thanks, Ed.
Yeah.
Oh look, you made it to the end, or you skipped along the timeline. You know, we can tell if you did that. Well, either way, as a reward for those who made it to the end, here is Tyler talking about a critical aspect of Mewgenics' design. What happens when related cats get down and dirty?
We knew this had to be a mechanic because it's a game about breeding cats. So we knew from the get-go that we had to handle inbreeding. But figuring out how related two cats are so that you can like use that as a metric for the chance to like mute to do like a birth defect on the kitten is surprisingly complicated. There's a lot of research because they use it for dog breeding. Like you can find the formulas where like, oh, it's this like recursive function. It's like, okay, recursive function, good enough. What if there's like 20,000 cats that span like 20,000 generations, and then, no, well, the recursive function kind of breaks down in that situation. But there is like, because of dog breeding, they have really efficient ways of computing this for populations of millions of dogs. Every pair of dogs, they store how closely related they are. Only the living dogs in the data set, basically. Once they're dead and you know that they're not gonna breed again, you can just drop that dog's data from the data set. You're never gonna be like, oh, this is year 8,000 in my save file and I've had 1 billion cats in this cat's lineage, And that would be like 1 billion times 1 billion like pairs of values to store, but there's only 100 alive, so it's still only 10,000 values to store. Like your cats that might have died on an adventure and they still exist in like your family history if you have their bloodline alive. And that's really cool to me and helps reinforce a lot of what the game's about. Like you can have a cat, you can click its family tree and you can like scroll up like 5 generations and be like, oh hey, that's that cat that did that special thing. And it's also kind of funny because it's just showing the cats at like the last state that they existed before they died, or their current state if they're still alive. So you can kind of tell which ones died on an adventure because they're all geared out with equipment.
I'm not a Nazi.